At 4:47 on the morning of May 11, 1945, Private John McKinney lay on his back inside a thin canvas tent near Dingolan Bay on the eastern coast of Luzon. The jungle around him breathed softly in the pre-dawn dark. Insects hummed. Palm leaves whispered. Somewhere far off, waves broke against the shoreline. McKinney slept with his M1 rifle resting beside his right hand, the way he always did after a perimeter shift. He had just finished hours at a light machine gun position guarding the edge of the American camp. He was 24 years old, had been in the Army 2.5 years, and came from a sharecropper family in rural Georgia. He could barely read. He could barely write. But he could shoot better than almost any man in his company. While McKinney slept, about 100 Japanese soldiers were moving through the jungle toward his position. They had watched the Americans for days, counting heads, studying the guard rotations, memorizing where the tents and gun pits were placed. The war in the Philippines was almost over, but on Luzon, many Japanese units refused to surrender. They attacked at night, at dawn, in desperate charges meant to kill, steal supplies, and vanish back into the jungle. This outpost guarded a supply route the Americans needed badly. If the Japanese took it, men would die far beyond this small patch of ground. The attack force moved in silence. Sergeant Fukutaro Mori led the advance group. His orders were simple: kill the first sentries without gunfire. No shots. No alarms. By the time the main body attacked, the Americans would already be blind and confused. Mori reached McKinney's tent and paused. He could hear breathing inside. One clean strike would end it. Inside that tent lay a man who had grown up hunting squirrels and rabbits in the Georgia woods. A boy who learned to aim before he learned to read. A farm kid who had fed his family when crops failed by bringing home whatever he could kill with a .22 rifle. The Army had noticed his shooting early. Drill sergeants said he moved through trees like someone born there. He had survived New Guinea, malaria, dysentery, ambushes, and years of jungle fighting. His friends knew two things about him: he never bragged, and he never slept without his rifle. At 4:51 a.m., Mori ripped open the tent flap and brought his sword down. The blade missed McKinney's neck by inches and tore through the side of his head instead, slicing part of his right ear away. Blood sprayed across the canvas. McKinney woke in agony, staring up at the shadow of a man lifting a sword again. He did not think. He swung. The butt of his rifle smashed into Mori's jaw and shattered it. The second blow crushed his skull. The Japanese sergeant collapsed dead beside the sleeping bag. Outside, boots pounded through the camp. The attack had begun. McKinney stumbled out of the tent, blood running down his neck, ears ringing, heart hammering. 30 yards away, muzzle flashes burst around the machine gun position. Screams mixed with rifle fire. Japanese soldiers were already pouring through the perimeter. The machine gun was everything. If the enemy captured it and turned it around, the entire camp would be cut to pieces. McKinney ran. By the time he reached the sandbag wall, 10 Japanese soldiers had already overrun the gun pit. One was trying to swing the weapon around. The others formed a ring, rifles out, guarding it. McKinney never slowed. He fired while running. One man fell at 15 yards. Another at 10. He vaulted the wall and landed inside the pit among 6 enemy soldiers. The space was no bigger than a small bedroom. He fired again and again, point blank. 3 men dropped where they stood. One tried to stab him. McKinney fired his last round and the man fell backward. The rifle went empty with a metallic ping. 3 Japanese soldiers were still alive. McKinney flipped the rifle and used it like an axe. Wood and steel crushed temples, shattered arms, snapped necks. 30 seconds after the machine gun was taken, all 10 attackers were dead. McKinney grabbed the gun. It was ruined. Bent feed tray. Jammed bolt. Useless. In the gray light before dawn, he looked up and saw dozens more shapes gathering at the jungle's edge. He scavenged ammunition from the bodies, slammed a fresh clip into his rifle, and waited. The second wave came running, screaming, bayonets out. McKinney began shooting. He dropped the lead man at 60 yards, then the next, then the next. He fired faster than training manuals said possible, his body remembering a lifetime of hunting. 8 shots. Reload. 8 shots. Reload. The charge broke. Men fell at 15 yards, at 10, at 5. 11 more lay dead in front of him. Then the mortars began. Explosions tore into the sandbags. Dirt and shrapnel rained down. Grenades landed at his feet. One he caught and hurled back before it detonated. The wall collapsed. Staying meant dying. McKinney grabbed ammunition and ran, bullets snapping past his head as he dove into a shallow depression. When the next group advanced, thinking he was retreating, he opened fire again from a new angle. Bodies fell in the open ground. He moved again. And again. Never staying still. Never letting them know where the next shot would come from. 20 minutes passed. 30 Japanese soldiers lay scattered between the trees and the camp. When his ammunition ran low, McKinney sprinted back through the killing ground to scavenge more, diving among the dead, ignoring the smell, ignoring the blood. A soldier rose suddenly in front of him, and McKinney shot him at 2 feet. He grabbed grenades, threw them into the trees, listened to screams, and ran again. By now the sky was light. The Japanese tried a flanking attack toward the supply tents. McKinney intercepted them alone. He shot the first 5 before the rest even understood what was happening. More came from the jungle. He fired into the clustered ranks, forcing them back again. Mortars shifted. He shifted. He shifted. 2 attacks came at once. He fought both. When they closed to within 20 yards and began advancing one by one, like hunters surrounding prey, McKinney did something no one expected. He charged. He shot 2 while running. He smashed faces with his rifle. He clubbed men to the ground. He was tackled, stomped, nearly bayonet, and fought back on the dirt with bare strength and broken wood. When 2 more appeared and saw him standing alone among their dead comrades, they hesitated. McKinney ran at them. They died too. They noticed the tools stamped with American factory names. The trucks that never seemed to break down. The radios that spoke calmly of Allied advances. Slowly, quietly, the idea that America was weak and decadent began to collapse under the weight of daily evidence. The first real crack came with an apple. One cold noon, a local supervisor named Harold sat with 6 prisoners around a small fire. As they ate, he noticed one of the Germans staring at his apple as if it were treasure. Without a word, Harold tossed him a second one. The man caught it, stared, and whispered, "Danke." Harold later said the look on his face was like he'd been handed a diamond. After that, the barriers thinned. They learned English, word by word. They learned names. They learned that their guards worried about sons fighting overseas and about crops back home. They discovered, to their astonishment, that the enemy laughed at the same jokes. Then the snow came. A foot deep overnight, silencing the world. Work stopped. The prisoners waited for punishment. Instead, Earl Dow told them to take the day off. Read. Play cards. They could hardly believe it. That night, an older sergeant stared into the stove and said quietly, "They trust us. Our own officers never did." Christmas sealed the transformation. turkey, gravy, pie, Red Cross packages. And then, in a dim cabin, an American guitar began to play. A German voice joined in, singing Silent Night. Then an English voice. For a few minutes, there was no war. Spring came slowly. The ice broke. News from Europe darkened. And on May 8th, the war ended. They listened in silence. Repatriation took months. They returned to ruins, to loss, to divided nations. Some never forgot that winter in Maine. Years later, one of them said, "I believed what I was told." And then one winter changed everything. The camps vanished. The forest reclaimed the clearings. The loons still call across the lake. And the lesson remains. That trust can cross enemy lines. That cruelty is not strength. That even in war, humanity can survive. In a forest without fences, men trained to hate learned how to be human again.